Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, we are all searching for ways to better evaluate players in order to give meaningful feedback. Over 15 years ago, I put together a test called the JAMODI Skill Rating. The JSR takes players through a series of tests involving basketball skill or athleticism, giving them one rating at the end. Their JSR rating will give you clarity on what needs to be discussed with players and parents on areas they need to focus on improving. I test our players at least 4 times each year. They're able to compete against each other, past players' scores, and most importantly, their past performances. If you'd like to start testing your athletes, email me at jamodipodcast@gmail.com for more information. Man, that clarity is really important. And I was sitting here kind of listening to you of what would be the advice be like it for a new coach or a coach that maybe is like many of us, just you have a huge list of things that you're trying to achieve. Like, what are those things that you can't fail at, or you got to be really good at, focused on? Like, one is you do have to fight for your culture every day. As corny as that sounds, like you have one. It's got to be positive, and you got to be fighting for it every day. So that, like, take that off the board. Like, that's a number one job. Then have a simple system. Have a simple system on offense and defense that players can know, get deep into, get better at, and then develop them. Skill development on both sides of the floor. Like, I think you focus on those 3 areas. I don't care what level you're at. You're not getting worse.
No, you're going to win more games. And there's times that talent's going to get you, right?
No doubt.
It happens. You see it when you go play some public schools for whatever. You know what I mean? There might be times at private school where you're, I don't know what the high school landscape looks like. You said you guys aren't recruiting. I feel like everybody's recruiting now, but but yeah, I think you're 100% correct. And if you just spend time on those 3 things, right? And then the players know that, and then you're all on the same page. I mean, that's coaching, Matt, right? Like, coaching is getting guys to believe in each other, in you, and coaching is getting guys beliefs, but belief on both sides of the floor that what you're doing and doing it together, right? That's coaching. And you have to coach different kids, different ways to get them there.
Yeah.
You have to build different relationships with different kids to get them there. And some kids get there faster than others, which is why, some years you play 7 guys, some years you're playing 10 guys. It's just, that's coaching, right? And I just think the more we complicate it, the more we try to make it not necessarily about ourselves, but there's different ways to overcoach, right? You panic, you don't think you're good enough, or things aren't working, or you go on a 2-game losing streak or 3-game, and so the pressure's building, and people on the outside world are thinking you should be doing this or that. But I always say, between the walls, we know, right? And if we believe in what we believe in, and we're all on the page, and we work on our craft each and every day together, we're going to win games, right? And you're going to have adversity. Things are going to happen. I mean, that's the reality of athletics. That's why we all got in it, because it taught us life skills, because life's not going to be rosy and peachy. There's going to be things that happen in our life. The adversity is coming, but if we believe in core values, we believe in core things, and we work on them each and every day. We have another saying in our program, trust the process, which is basically that, right? Like, we don't ever talk about, Matt, like, our first round of coaching, we're going to win 25 games. We're going to the NCAA tournament. Or high school, right? We're going to beat McKinney North 8 times, or we're going to split 5 times out of the 10 times we play them. But now we don't, man. We just trust the process each day. I try to get better as a coach. My staff tries to get better as a staff. Our players are trying to get better each day. We're trusting the process. And if we do that in March, we're going to look up, and we're going to be in a situation that we want to be in, right? We're going to have the 20 wins. We're going to be in a situation to go to the NCAA tournament, And so we really try to simplify to that, right? Like, just quit worrying about all the other stuff. Just trust the process each and every day. And everybody's process is different, right? Everybody's journeys, to your point, in development is different. But if you trust your process, you trust your journey, you're going to put yourself in a situation, so there's no panic, right? Within the year, and you continue to try to get better. So that's kind of how we do it. I don't know. Everybody does it differently, right? And that's okay, right? That's the beauty of coaching.
Yeah.
I think, right? Like, everybody has different things they believe in and different ways of doing it. And that's what's fun about coaching.
Coach, there's a lot of gold there. And I recently had a talk or put this episode out with a lady named Shawnee Harley. And I didn't know her before Tyler Costin connected us to each other. She was one of the Canadian Olympic on the women's side, one of their coaches for 8 years, college coach for 20 years. It's one of the most impactful talks I've been able to have, as far as like, I needed to hear that. And the one thing she really focused on was, as coaches, us being aware of when we make fear-based decisions. And the fear is us being afraid of losing, because that fear, I mean, coach, the pressure at your level, it's insane. It's very different for me here. I know at Faith, if I'm discipling them the right way, treating them the right way, and we have a good plan and we're competitive, I could be at 500, and I'm still going to have a job. Not every high school job is like that. Golly, you're at Allen High School, like, you better win. You got 7,000 kids. It's like a college, you bet. But my whole point is, when I am making decisions based off of the fear of losing, like, those are the decisions that you look back and you regret. You're making an abrupt change because you're a knee-jerk reaction to something. You're not worried about culture because you have to worry about this because this. So she just says, instead of the fear of losing, eliminate that. Understand that it's going to happen, and it's all about process. You're right on the money. But that shift for me, like, the way she said that and communicated, is like, yeah, my worst decisions I've made as a coach were all fear-based and not out of courage.
And I think that's the hardest thing, or some of the hardest things in coaching, Matt, right? It's like, when you're on a losing streak, do you truly believe in what you're doing, right? And then it could go back to what you and I talked about earlier. Maybe we can make some it might be time to make some adjustments. Maybe not, it's not overhaul, right? But maybe make some adjustments to it, But I think that's really difficult, right? It's hard to do, and the pressure mounts. There's pressure in all coaching, right? Like, we're all, whether you're a junior high coach, you get your pressure by the parents, right? There's crazy parents out there, or whatever. But there's always pressure, and you got to believe. You got to believe in yourself. You got to believe in what you're doing, because when you do make those fear-based decisions, and I think the second hardest thing to do is accountability, right? Like, it's just, when it's your best players, when you're fortunate to coach, when your best players are your hardest workers, those are fun to coach, right? Like, and we've all had them, and they're a lot of fun to be around. It's a fun year, right? But when your best players aren't necessarily your hardest workers, then you got to figure it out a little bit, right? And then what's the accountability piece? And I think in today's world, we were talking with our staff this summer that, you can't just put them on the track at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning now, run, just go run. I mean, like, that doesn't work anymore.
Remember,
right?
The Titans, that culture does not work.
What's the Urban Meyer deal that was that came out?
The swamp.
Right? Yeah. Like, you can't do that anymore, obviously, right?
Our goal is to run people off. No. Like, that's not it, coach.
Right? Like, I wish I told my staff, or my wife, whatever, was like, I wish I could have played for him during the one, just to see if I was tough enough to make it.
Yeah. It's like the Navy SEAL, like going through buds. Like, I don't think I could do it, but man, what if I could?
Could I have done it for 1 year? Was I mentally tough enough to do it? Right? Like, that's always challenged myself, right? Like, but again, you can't do it. So how do you hold guys accountable? Now, the biggest, we think, or I believe here, that it's through depth, right? Like, if the better depth we can get, the more guys that we can get to play, the easier it is to hold guys accountable. Right? That have it. And so, but that's the hardest, right? As a young coach, I'm more comfortable now a little bit, I hope, in my skin to know when you have to make tough decisions and you have to do some things. But I think that's when you were young, you're like, well, he's our best player. I can't touch him. I can't do anything. And then, you realize sometimes when you eliminate that, you become better. Sometimes there's ways to, when you hold him accountable, he becomes better. It's just, it's the process. Sometimes you don't, sometimes you lose that kid and you're not better. Right. And so is it, again, that's in coaching, that's tough, I think.
Yeah. And I think then at that point, when, like, let's just say you lose the best player, well, then you have to define success differently at that point. Like Coach Drew, my senior year, we had 6 scholarship players. We were 8-21. We were really successful. We just had to define it differently. When you lose that best player, the success might be in actually the culture of your locker room and the belief in your team, and that the future will benefit from that hard decision that you made. But you're right on the money. difficult in that spot. Most of the time, you get to look back at that and realize years later, I messed up or I did it right.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't usually know right. You don't know right then usually. Yeah, down the road, you're saying, yes, I hit that the right way. I made the right decision, or no, and I got some regrets.
But that's
right?
a part of it. That's a part of the journey, right?
Yeah. And I also think, Matt, there's tough decisions every year that you have to make, and sometimes you make the right one, and sometimes you don't. You're constantly making, so like everybody thinks, oh man, that they coach, man. The longer I'm in this, yes, we're coaching, right? Yes, I love the time on the practice floor, but there's so much other stuff now that we have to do that's not coaching, right? And so that's where the business.
What percent would you say is actually you on the floor? 10%?
Is coaching?
Yeah, like actually being on the floor with them with all the responsibilities, all the things you have to do.
Higher than 20%. It's probably more like, to your point, 5 or 10. It's just and that's why we got into it, right? You and I got into it for the coaching and the relationship and being around kids and developing kids, and hopefully that they're successful in their life.
And the love for that is still enough, right?
Yeah, and you can still do that, absolutely, right? But the challenge is just there's so much more that go. Whether it's there's so many more meetings now, right? I have compliance meetings, staff meetings,
so many more podcasts, annoying people asking you to do stuff, and
but you know what I mean. And then just the mental health piece of it. Now that's so big. And just then again, building relationship. Just it's just, you think you're having a great day, right? You're like I'm always like, and then you check your email and now you're right, and then now you're on your phone and you're like. So yeah, it's just, and I think how you manage those situations though determines a lot too of how good your team's going to be on the floor. And again, back to the culture piece. But when you're not having to manage all those problems and you're not having to deal with a lot of that other stuff, your teams tend to be more successful, right? When they're protecting that. So, I think it goes hand in hand.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.